This video will cover the topic of multiple representations. Be sure the date and topic are at the top of your page. The essential question to guide our video today is, what are the different ways to display an algebraic relationship? We have been working with algebra this unit, and we have seen different ways to represent algebraic relationships. These relationships show us the connection between two variables, and they can be displayed in different ways. So let's look at a quick example of an algebraic relationship and just break down the different ways we could show that. Let's say, for example, that a car can travel 30 miles on 1 gallon of gas. This can be seen as an algebraic relationship with two variables. Our independent variable will help to control our dependent variable, right? So the number of miles we can go depends on how much gas we have. So this would be miles, and it would depend on how many gallons we have in our car, right? The first representation is with a table. Now remember that relationship. The car can go 30 miles per gallon of gas. So 30 miles per gallon. We can show that in a table. If we had 1 gallon of gas in the car, we could go 30 miles. If we had 2, we could go 60, and so on. This is a representation of the data using a table, and that's it, right? That's one way that you might show someone the information that the car could go 30 miles for every gallon of gas. A second way to represent algebraic information, representation number 2, is a graph. Let's remember again that our situation has us going 30 miles for every gallon of gas. Right? So we can set this up with a graph, and we'll need to make sure we have our independent variable along our x-axis and our dependent along the y. So go ahead and get your graph set up. Hopefully yours looks like mine, with the number of gallons of gas as our independent variable, because the miles depends on how much gas we have. We may have chosen different scales, of course, but once you have your scale set up, you can actually say, well, 1 gallon of gas gets us 30 miles, 2 gets us 60, 3 is 90, and so on, right? And this is a second way that people represent information. And on this case, I actually think we could go ahead and connect our lines, since we can certainly use fractional pieces here of our gallons of gas, right? We can use a half a gallon and so on. There is a third type of representation that you can use to display algebraic relationships, and it's one we haven't used as much, and that is the equation. An equation requires us to use variables, letters, that will apply to this situation. So in this case, M seems like a good fit for miles, and perhaps G would be a good fit for gallons of gas, right? I've chosen letters to represent both of these. Now, we have probably noticed from our other representations that if we have 1 gallon of gas, we can multiply that by 30, and it will tell us that we can go 30 miles, right? If we have 2 gallons, each one of those goes 30 miles, so we would have 60 miles altogether, right? So I can write an equation that matches this situation. And in this case, the number of miles that I'm traveling is equal to the number of gallons times 30, right? And this is how we generally write it. We don't want to use that x. Remember this old way where people would write times number of gallons? This would get really confusing, so we don't want to do that. And we have our coefficient here in front of the g to represent, or sorry, just as standard notation, right? We don't usually write G30, we write 30G. And we're going to work with equations a lot more in the next couple lessons, but it's important to see that there are 3 distinct ways that all share the same information: a graph, a table, and now an equation that all tell the same story. And everybody will have their own opinion about which representation is best, and sometimes one representation is better for certain situations than others. But these are the three that you will commonly see for the rest of this unit and specifically and heavily next year in 7th grade.